it out in the yard and let it rain on it, let it snow on it, let the sun beat on it, it won't get better. It will get worse. It deteriorates. You build a building, it gets worse with age. It doesn't get better. You build a government, guess what? Second law of thermodynamics. It gets worse. Okay? Everything gets worse with time. Everything does. You can't get around that. Let me show you something else here. Matthew 7, verse 13. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Speaking about heaven and hell. Hell, the road to hell is very wide, and many there be which go in thereat. The road to heaven is very narrow. One of the best things I ever heard was by a pastor named Chris Huff, and he said a lot of people have this idea that the road to hell is this big highway here, and then the road to heaven is this little narrow path that winds back through the woods. And he said, I don't think that's it. The road to hell is the big highway, but that little yellow line going in the middle of that highway, that's the narrow way. And the thing is, all of mankind is walking on that highway, and those that get saved have to stop and turn around and go against the tide on that little yellow stripe. And I think that's a good way to put it, because it isn't, that you're just off in this little peaceful path over there. No, you're going against the world when you truly get saved. But my point I'm trying to make here in Matthew chapter 7 is the Bible says that the majority are going to go to hell. So then we shouldn't witness. Right? I mean, the Bible says the majority is going to hell, so what's the point? Few there be that find the way to heaven. So let's not witness. Yeah, we're commanded to, obviously. See, but you look at that, you don't say, well, I'm not going to witness because the majority go to hell. No, you witness. You get out there and you preach the gospel to every creature. Here's a tract, there's a tract, there you go. Well, aren't you going against what God says? Well, in a sense, yeah, but you're doing what you're supposed to do. God says certain things are going to come to pass, but that doesn't mean that you have to go along with it. Okay? There will be a one world government, but that doesn't mean that we should be for it. You can be against it, and then you should be against it. But, well, let's continue on here. Proverbs chapter 28. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 2. Okay, what can you do to slow down the New World Order? It is inevitable, it is coming, but can you do something to slow it down? Okay, Proverbs 28:2. For the transgression of a land, many are the princes thereof, or congressmen and senators. But by a man of understanding and knowledge, the state thereof shall be prolonged. And of course, a good example of that is Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah. And we've been over that before, how that God spoke to Abraham and he said, if you can find me 50 righteous men, 45, and he went down to 10, I'll spare the city. You know why America hasn't been destroyed yet? It's because of Christians. Christians that are sticking to the truth. Okay? By a man of understanding and knowledge, the state thereof shall be prolonged. And why should the state of America be prolonged? Well, so we can get rich, so we can make a lot of money. No. So we can continue to preach the gospel. And as you heard Obama say, one of the walls he wants to tear down is Bible-believing Christians. So there is anti-Christian sentiment. But we still have a very strong Christian presence here in America. And so we're still able to get the gospel out to people. And we should fight for that as long as we can. And God will protect us through these times as long as we are doing His will. The New World Order is going to come, definitely. But He will prolong the peaceful state that we currently have as we are doing His will and as we are turning more people to righteousness. That's what He'll do. Jeremiah chapter 17. You know, a lot of the reaction that you get from people to the whole coming New World Order is they'll do what is written about here in Jeremiah 17. Jeremiah 17, verse 5. Thus saith the Lord, Cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departeth from the Lord. For he shall be like the heath in the desert, and shall not see when good cometh, but shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, in a salt land, and not inhabited. Now, I'll just stop there for just a minute. I just saw some videos on YouTube of these guys. They claim to be Christians, but they're into this whole constitutional, I'm not paying income tax, I'm a citizen of the state and not of the United States. I'm not a federal citizen, I'm a state citizen. They don't have driver's licenses, they don't have insurance on their vehicles. They're into this whole thing, and they live in the desert. They have all this solar panels and their own water supply, and they're into all this survival stuff. And of course, they believe that they're going to go through the tribulation. You know, what are they doing for the Lord? Zero, nothing. And what are they trusting in? Are they trusting in the Lord to deliver themselves? No. They study the law so that they can go out and get in confrontations with police officers. I had a police officer pull me over the other day, and he tried to arrest me, and I told him, you cannot, sir, because of this law and that law, and I'm a citizen of this state, and I've made a declaration of this and that. And they were getting into this whole thing about your vehicle. You don't say that you're the operator of it, you know, and you're just a passenger. And then you can, all this garbage. And they're doing nothing for the Lord. And they're making flesh, they're trusting in flesh and their weapons to protect themselves. That isn't it. Okay? That's the wrong reaction. And you got to be careful of some of that survivalist type of thing. There's some wisdom to it, but you got to be careful with that. Because you can get really off base with that. And you can get to a point where you're building your wilderness retreat and you're forming your militia and you're getting all the stuff together, and you start thinking, I can survive, I can do it without the Lord. And that's what they do. Look at verse 7. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hope the Lord is. For he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, and that spreadeth out her roots by the river, and shall not see when heat cometh. But her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought, neither shall cease from yielding fruit. God will provide your needs, especially if you're getting things done for Him. Romans chapter 12. Romans 12, verse 9. We're going to see some instruction here for Christians. All right, Romans 12:9. Let love be without dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil. Cleave to that which is good. You are supposed to love good and hate evil. Okay, now jump down to verse 17. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. That's the instructions for a Christian. You don't go after your enemy and try to get back at him and, vengeance and all this stuff. Help him out. Okay, now turn to Ephesians 6:12. Here's something else a lot of people don't realize. Ephesians 6:12. I played those clips earlier of the Pope and, Obama and Henry Kissinger and all these guys. And people start gritting their teeth and, I can't stand that guy. Oh, man, if we could just get rid of Obama. If we could just get rid of the Pope. If we could just get rid of all these. And they forget about Ephesians 6:12. It says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Guess what happens when Obama gets elected out or voted out or whatever? They're just going to put another one in. Oh, we can impeach him. Go ahead, they'll put somebody else in. We'll get Joe Biden or whatever. We'll get him in. We're wrestling not against flesh and blood. These guys that are calling for a new world order, they're all deceived. In their minds, they know what they're talking about, certainly, but they're deceived by the devil. And it's kind of sad in a way, because the devil is positioning them to build this one world government that he's going to rule, and in reality, they're walking right into the trap that God set for them. And they're going to be in hell one day. And that's something that we shouldn't say, "Oh, that's